Hello, INTPs. Hello, YouTubes. That was a reference to Mr. Ronald Jenkins, which I'm looking it up. It's about 15 years ago now. Little update. I ordered a set of books right behind me. All these books that actually Mr. Nero Knowledge recommended. So I'll be reading them. Here's another one. About other books that didn't quite make the Bible. That's interesting. So that's gonna, yeah. Well, I mean, things like that. The subconscious mind is very much my focus right now, which I find amazing. I find the subconscious mind amazing because I'll just say what I realized today is this. What's going to happen next in the next 5 seconds? Whatever you think it is, your subconscious mind is telling you that. You know, there's this feeling, there's this expectation for what's going to happen. What is that expectation? Well, the expectation is this feeling that your body has about, well, in these situations, usually this kind of stuff happens. And then if something completely out of the blue happens, you get scared, or you scream, or you get surprised. These things, that is your unconscious mind not being able to predict that situation. Now you can imagine that if you, for example, grew up in a traumatic situation, that your unconscious mind is overtuned for certain negative expectations that you unfortunately have, and they probably won't happen anymore. But you know, like a stray dog, you still have that instinct in you. And I'm so fascinated by that because you can talk about that with anyone. Anyone's current expectation of what's going to happen next is, to put it very simply, basically what happened over the last, the same things that you would expect would happen in the first 8 years of your life. That's the idea. That's the theory, and you can make a connection between that, the psychological idea of an unconscious mind and spirit. So I'm exploring that. Oh, I'm trying a little fashion thing here, a little necklace. It's been good. 84 kilos. That's going okay. So, main topic today. I've been asked to go over all of the functions. For people who are not familiar with what the functions are, I'll go over all of them, just so that everyone knows. And I'll say it in my own way. I'll try and say it in the INTP way, so that you get a compact idea of what each one is. So that when I say these things, if you're someone who's not familiar, then you will somewhat know what I'm talking about. So we'll move into it. Hold on. Okay. So here are the functions. And let me see if I can bring up, okay. I'm looking up and seeing if there's a way to connect the dichotomies with the functions. But there really isn't, so I'll just keep going here. Okay, I'll show you this first actually. This one gives you a picture of each of the types. And actually, I intend to read Jung's book about, he wrote a book called Psychological Types back in 1922. I want to read it so I can really understand what is new and what he found. But each of these, types, like, if you look at INTJ here, INTJ means this. If you look in functions, it means I means the first function is introverted. N means when you observe, you use intuition primarily. T means when you judge, you use thinking. J means the first extroverted function you have. The first extroverted function you have is a judging function. So here in INTJ, you see the first function is introverted. That means the first function is introverted, and the first extroverted function is thinking. I chose a harder type to go through this with. The first extroverted type is thinking. Okay, again, from the beginning. The first introverted function is intuition. First introverted function. The first function is introverted. The first extroverted function is judging, which is thinking. That means that the first function must be intuition, because the first extroverted function, and they're an introvert, so their second function must be extroverted, is thinking. Their second function is extroverted thinking. First function is introverted intuition. It's easier to talk about, I think, the sensors. So ESTJ here. Their first extroverted function is judging. Their first function is also judging. The judging function they use is thinking. So extroverted thinking is their first function. And then the second function must be their observing function, which is sensing. So they'll have introverted sensing second. So, I mean, there's a very simple way. Well, there's a lot I can lay out about this to explain why that's true. But that's the idea. The four letters here don't really mean much. I mean, you can think from the dichotomies. You can think from I, E, N, S, T, F, S, J, P, but it's much more clear to think about it from the functions. These four functions are, according to the theory, how people think. Let's do one more. ISTJ. So their first extroverted function is judging, and they're an introvert. That means their second function is judging, because second extroverted function is judging. What kind of judging? Well, it's either thinking or feeling. So their second function is extroverted thinking. You see that? And since they're introverted, and so you see how it goes: observing, so sensing. The first two functions is always an observing function, which is S or N, and a judging function, which is T or F, right? And since the extroverted judging function is thinking, that's the second function, and their introverted sensing is first. If I lay out the whole system, it makes a lot more sense, like I said, but we'll leave at that for now. Now, the functions themselves. We'll start with FI. So I'll first talk about, if you look at these, you can see that there are pairs here. There's an I, which is introverted, and E, which is extroverted. I-E, right? And the general feeling of an introverted function is that you go away from the world and you go inside and you create some kind of experience completely disconnected from the external world. But when you're doing E, you are looking out to the world and you're drawing information out there in this dimension. So introverted feeling is valuing, what it says here. Introverted feeling is, how do I feel about that? What are my beliefs about that? And if we look here, we can see, well, I'll tell you. INFP has this first. ISFP has this first. ESFP has a second, and ENFP has a second. So it's very important to them to think about, how do I feel about that? In my experience, what I've also seen this showing up as is a deep value of individuals, individualism, deep value of people, deep value of humans. And the Voltaire quote that is, I may not agree with you. So I do not agree with what you say, but I will defend your right to express it to the last. This quote is very clearly FI. It is all about I exist, what I believe is valuable, that's what I live by, and the people around me, I value what they believe, because we are all individuals and we should all be respected. That's FI. Now the extrovert version of this is looking out into the world, like, for example, me, INTPs, by the way, have this fourth extrovert feeling. I don't know what I believe. But the way that I process feeling is, I look out into the world and I say, well, how does this person feel about it? How does this person feel about it? How does this person feel about it? And it's almost like that lattice of feelings is how I go about, doing my emotional work. Now that, for me, this is fourth. This is my fourth function. And so it's something that I'm aware of, but I'm not very comfortable doing. So my mother is an INFP, which means that what she feels is true is very important to her. What she feels is true is very important to her. My dad, who's ESTP, his third function is this. So he's he is very aware of how he's constantly paying attention to how people feel around him. His brain tells him that, and he processes it. However, it's not really his main job, That's the other thing about this. The first two of your functions, the first one you feel like it's really important and like that's what you bring to the world, and it's obvious to you, of course. The second function, you think you're very responsible for it, and so you want to make sure you express it. So, but the third is just something you do for fun, and you're just like, oh, this is fun to do, I guess I'll do it, but you don't feel as responsible. You just do it when you're relaxing. Fourth is like you barely are aware of it, and since you're so uncertain about it, it has a tendency to feel negative and uncertain, and it's a source of like insecurity, or also a source of ultimate meaning too, because it's just that feeling that always feels a little bit, it feels tantalizingly close but hard to achieve. So for my mother, who is INFP, that's extroverted thinking. That's being organized and making things happen. And it's like if only I could do that. It's always that feeling. But something that she's very comfortable with is what she believes, how she feels about things. Her worth as a person, and people should be respected. So that's the dimension of feeling. The FI is, how do I feel about that? What I believe. Well, I believe, FE is, but what about that person? What about that person? How do we make sure everyone we're talking about here feels good? TI. Okay, so feeling is about this like very human oriented thing, right? TI is about is like it's thing oriented. It's thing oriented. So TI is going within the brain and making sure that what you're reasoning about has internal consistency. And so, for example, if I say fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, right? And we all agree that fact 1, 2, and 3 are true. Someone tells me fact 4, as an INTP, I will instantly say, oh, hold on, fact 4 cannot be true because fact one. And this is just automatic. This is our hero function. And that's what we're constantly trying to make sense of. It's like, hey, fact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But hold on, fact 13 we also know is true. If fact 13 is true, that calls into question fact 4 and 8. How do we reconcile this? And then you go on this quest to say, okay, fact 8, actually, if we adjust it this much, then it all makes sense. That must be what's true. What's very interesting about this, well, actually, okay, I'll talk about TE first, and then I'll say what's interesting. TE is externally, okay, so TI looks inside, internally says, okay, it all makes sense now. TE looks out and says, looking out into this world, looking at these boxes, looking at this time, looking at these resources, does it all make sense? Is it all organized? And so they will be the people scheduling things and saying, like, okay, in order to make that happen, I need these resources in this place at this time. Is that going to happen? That's extroverted thinking. It's looking out into the world and thinking that way. So extroverted thinking, one of the ways that this comes out, one of the ways that this is expressed, is through credentials and reliability and reputation, because these are ways that people share or delegate delegate reputation efficiently. They delegate trust efficiently. If this thing has a certification, then I can trust that someone else did the work of verifying this, so I don't have to. That is the TE way of verifying what is true. And what I want to go back to about TI is TI, especially INTPs, because we have TE as the opposing function, we really balk at that idea that someone else verified this. I don't really trust anyone to verify anything. I would rather review it all, put it all together in one big logical framework. And if that framework is internally consistent and also explains more than I originally thought, and it feels very internal, like beautiful, and it all makes sense, and it makes a lot of things make sense, oh, that must be true. That is a TI way of going about things. And this is one reason why INTPs, things never feel certain, because it is this constant building of this Lego lattice. And when I add something new, suddenly everything else is like everything else must be re-verified, this is beautiful when you need internally consistent systems, and it also manifests as just this huge ability to remember many things, because of course that should be there, because that must be there in order for this to be true and this to be true. And I've only recently discovered that this is not common. It's not common, and like especially I've seen that for TE users, they really struggle to remember these kinds of things, these kinds of things that are obvious for internally consistent thinkers. Let me see other ways that TI expresses itself. Well, just logic and just immediately knowing what doesn't make sense, because as I said, like, hold on, you can't say number 9 because that contradicts number 4. Like, instantly INTPs know this. TE, instantly they know, or rather they feel responsible for knowing what is real and what will work. And so if I tell them a fact, they will say, who said that? What was that verified by a reputable source? Like, these kinds of ideas, they're out there. They're not trying to build this internally consistent thing. They're more concerned with reality and making things reality, and they will shortcut the reliability of things through. If someone told them, "Hey, this very reputable company verified that that's true," then they will say, "Okay, I can use that." So we've covered the judging. That's one way of thinking about these, by the way. This is judging. There's feeling and thinking. You see these two judging ways, right? The first two here are very human. One is, as an individual, how do I judge things? Here it is, as part of my community looking out, what is the emotional impact of what we're doing here? One other way that people have talked about this is FI is morals, the individual thing, and FE is ethics, looking out. TI is logic, they say, and TE is rationality. So another TE idea is politics, and like, hey, let's choose the idea, let's choose the approach that the most people would be happy with, right? TI would say, no matter what you say, if it doesn't make logical sense, then I don't want to do it. That's what TI says in that situation. All right, next, the observing functions. You see that there's intuition and then there's sensing. And we'll go over intuition first. Introverted intuition. Introverted intuition is going within and looking for connections to everything that is observed. And the thing about intuition is it is unconscious. It is pattern matching. It's very much kind of like AI is trained. When you get a result from AI, you can't really say how that result came out. You just know that it makes sense. So if you've ever looked into how an LLM is trained, or LLM comes up with an answer, like like ChatGPT comes out with the next word. That next word is just a statistical creation based on all of the information that has been collected before. That's intuition. Intuition is saying, hey, statistically, based on patterns, this is probably the next word. And introverted intuition is the person looking through just all the information they have within and saying, the pattern I see is this. And the difference here is for introvert intuition, this pattern is like, it's like a path. It's like a path. It's like a first person path. You're looking down and you're saying, okay, I'm here. What do I see looking forward? That's introvert intuition. And so, this is why chess players with introvert intuition are very good, because they can see the game going forward and the branches going out, and then they can feel in a very intuitive way. Like, that's Magnus Carlsen is one of these guys, because he looks out and he says, this is the best path. I don't quite know why, but pattern matching tells me after playing thousands of games, this is the best way to go. So that's introverted intuition. People call it insight. People call it hunch. What else can I say about it? It also comes with willpower. It comes with an idealism. So that's the other thing about intuition, is it is not looking out into reality. And so the things it can create are very possibility and future focused. Like, hey, this is what is, and this is what could be. So intuition is all about what could be. Extroverted intuition. So introverted intuition is looking within and going through the information and seeing what you see, right? Extroverted intuition is looking out and seeing the possibilities and the futures of everything. And so for me, how this is experienced often is someone says something and I instantly feel that they are saying that for a certain intention or a certain reason, or people are like something that I really like to do is when people are walking around on the streets outside, I like to feel out where the best way to walk is, because as everyone else is moving, I will move into a place that's empty, and when a car is slowing down, NEFE, for INTPs, will see the car slowing down and read what the car is expressing in the moment, so that I can more easily navigate, right? So NE is feeling very much that like everything is in flow, and I am observing the flow, and I am part of the flow. And this is especially because if we look over here, INTP, I have extroverted intuition second. So I feel like this is very important. Being in the flow and observing what people intend. By the way, my mother has extroverted intuition second, so she also feels this. She also is looking around and seeing everyone's intentions, seeing everything moving and everything in flow. The other thing about extroverted intuition is it's brainstorming. It's branching out into possibility further than what you see. But that's the thing. NI wants to narrow down, wants to look forward and find the path. NE wants to branch out and go beyond what has currently been drawn out. So this is why, as I say, TE is very much at odds with NE, because NE wants to go beyond the boundaries, and TE wants to use the boundaries that have already been set to create outcomes, right? And so NE is like bleeding beyond the lines. So NE very much has this very, very interesting you may observe that NE has a very loose relationship with boundaries. Like boundaries don't really exist for NE, because NE would like to just jump across everything. Okay, so now the final observing functions. Sensing. Let's see, did I cover everything here? Okay, yeah. So let's go to sensing. Introverted sensing. Introverted sensing is just within you. You have this experience of life, and you carry it with you, and you can reference that experience of life for all kinds of things. Other things related to this is tradition, memory, endurance, wisdom, experience. The more I do it, the better I get. Repetition, this kind of idea. And like a reason why tradition is very much like it feels good for SI is and comfort by the way, and helping people feel comfortable and stable, safety. And the reason why tradition feels good for an SI user is because it felt good in the past. That's why I know it's going to feel good again. That's the SI way. And so high SI users will say, that's the way we've always done it. Why change? They're very conservative, and they want to preserve what has already been proven to be true. And if you look here, you'll see ISTJ, and ISFJ are the most conservative people in the world, because their first function is introverted sensing. And so the thing that they reference always is, how did it work in the past? Let's do that again. And if you reference something new, like extrovert intuition, if you brainstorm, the ISTJ will say, I need you to prove to me that it's actually better, or else I'm not going to do it. Right. And the other thing that SI is like is, what I've heard from SI users is they experience life as like they've already experienced life. It's like life is like this map that they see before them, and they want their life to follow a certain path. And so they reflect on their path so far, and they want their life to have a certain way. Like they want their life to go a certain way. Now SE, okay, so that's SI. SE is looking out and seeing everyone's experience and taking everything around you, which also includes like nature and action and the senses. So like just wanting to be stimulated sensually is very much SE. And then also that in that environment, being an actor in that environment and making things happen and influencing people is very much SE. Entertaining people and making sure someone has a good time and teasing someone and enjoying them laughing, like that is SE. So if you've ever met anyone that seems very like just like their sense of humor is to poke you verbally or physically, that's very much an SE thing. I would say humor, in my opinion, I think humor is either comes in the any variety or the SE variety. The SE variety is teasing and pushing and punching. Any is like absurdity, like looking at something a different way that makes it look ridiculous. All right. So, well, yeah, that was my overview of the 8 functions. And let's see if we can draw some more insight from this. I'll explain some other things that might add a little bit more clarity here. But as you can see, after going through those functions, really, what these 4 letters are is saying, you have 4 functions and in a certain order. So, okay, for example, INTJ, right? We've talked about how the first function is introverted, and the first extroverted function is judging. So that means we know that they are extroverted thinking, and it's second. And their first function is going to be intuition, right? An ENTJ is just the same thing, but flipped. Can you see that? Extroverted thinking is their first. So INE is like the same kind of person, just flipped. So I'm INTP. ENTP is very similar. It's just flipped. The other thing I'll say real quick is thinking and feeling is on an axis, and sensing and intuition is on an axis. What that means is if you have thinking first, then you will have feeling last. The first and fourth is going to be on those axes. It'll be judging. First and fourth will be, if the first is judging, the fourth is judging. If the second is judging, the third will be judging. Or if the second is sensing, or the second is observing, the third will be observing. So they have this relationship in that way. And I find this very valuable as I've explored all the functions and I've learned their purposes, because it's helped me see my blind spots. And throughout my life, I've learned why or the issues that can happen because of my blind spots. And something I'm really advocating for these days is your blind spots are your blind spots. Let them be blind spots. These 8 functions are not like a gotta collect them all kind of thing. It is more average person understanding that they have blind spots, and you can be humble and let other people handle the blind spots. It's not, if you don't see the thing, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It actually does exist. And having the person that takes that seriously is useful to have around, even though it can be very frustrating at times. My example, for me, seventh function is SE. So these people that are very in the moment, they can be annoying sometimes. Yeah. Everyone has that blind spot. By the way, your blind spot is your seventh function. But there are a lot of things you can go through on this. But the main thing I wanted to cover was just an overview of the 8 functions. Going over, like, we can look at these again. I can't think of anything else to cover in this very basic intro. But there's a lot here, and I intend to keep on mostly just talking to my INTPs, and I almost expect INTPs to have already learned this. But hey, maybe my explanations have clarified some things for you as well. I mostly did this because my mother, who is interested, asked me what the functions are. So, covered them. And that's that for today. I hope everyone's going well. I hope everyone is experimenting and not being, and just exploring like crazy, because that is our superpower. Theorizing, exploring. Do that. And I'll see you next time.